If I'm overwhelmed by debt, it's because I'm fixated on debt. If you care about financial freedom, you don't have to fixate on debt, which means you don't have to be overwhelmed by it. What you should fixate on is, how do I get more money to flow towards me, right? At the pickleball courts, I'm pretty transparent when I get around people that I feel comfortable with. And I just let everyone around me there know. I said, I got $6 million worth of debt. I sleep well at night because the only thing that I care about in regards to that debt is how much money that debt flows towards me. And that amount of money is greater than the amount of money it costs to service the debt.
How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
What's up, everyone? If you haven't realized it already, this is not Jeff Smith's voice. He normally intros us, but I'm going to be riding solo today. I'm Shawn Rider. You usually hear both Jeff and I pontificate on certain topics, but today it's just going to be me. I'm excited to throw out some of my thoughts on some particular topics. What I like to do as I coach our clients and as people DM me and reach out to me, text me with questions, is I keep a bank of questions that people ask me, because those questions turn into content, both on my personal page, but also this podcast. And when Jeff and I get on podcasts, sometimes the topic comes from that question bank on something that we've answered for somebody else, or it's relevant to something that Jeff and I are working through personally. And so it's top of mind. So today, what I'm going to do on this episode is, it's basically going to be a Q&A show with me, Shawn Rider, based on a few different questions that I have in the question bank. Some of them are interrelated. Some of them are not, but most of them fall into the 4F categories that we promote here at the Tactical Empire and what we work on in the inner circle with the men in our mastermind group. And those 4Fs are family, fitness, finances, and freedom. So if any of those things are relevant to you, and they most likely are, please hang out and listen to the episode. Give me your feedback. And if you have any particular questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram or Facebook. So the first question, this question comes up often, if it's phrased this way or not, but it is the topic around debt. And I just had this conversation last week on the pickleball court with a few people when the topic of debt got brought up. And lo and behold, the name of Dave Ramsey got brought up. So it made for a good conversation. So I'm going to try not to touch his name with a 10-foot pole, but I am going to address the topic and the question here. So the question that I have is, how can I get started on the path to financial freedom if I feel overwhelmed by debt? Now, I am not a psychotherapist. I'm not going to try and be anyone's psychiatrist, but you have to start with the feeling that you have around debt. You feel overwhelmed by debt, and you feel overwhelmed by debt by potentially two things: your experiences growing up or currently with debt, and the story. And I say story lightly because it's masqueraded as lessons that others taught you about debt, whether that be a grandparent, a parent, or somebody that you watch on YouTube and they tell you that debt is bad. But either way, you have a feeling of overwhelm by debt. And this question insinuates that someone has debt. I don't know what type of debt that may be, but with working with people on their money for the past few years, a lot of people that feel overwhelmed by debt don't differentiate different types of debt. So they're just bundling it all up into the word debt. So I'm going to break this down into a few of the things that I teach and talk to with the men in the inner circle and the people that I work with one-on-one. And the first thing, none of this is going to change overnight, right? Like if you could have just flipped a switch and not been overwhelmed by debt, you probably would have done it by now. But hopefully some of these lessons are the things that you can start to think about. And when I coach people, I'm really coaching myself, because I'm reinforcing the things that I have to tell myself when I start having, for lack of a better term, negative feelings towards something, right? Like I'm invested in real estate and it's not always hunky dory. It's not always happy and positive. And so I have feelings about the real estate that I own, and sometimes they're not negative, or sorry, sometimes they're not positive. They are negative. And so I have to actually coach myself through some of these things. And I've really had to coach myself on debt. Okay, so when I look at that question, how can I get started on the path to financial freedom if I feel overwhelmed by debt? The first thing that you should acknowledge if you are someone that's interested in financial freedom is that debt freedom does not automatically insinuate financial freedom. Another way to say that is debt freedom is not a prerequisite to financial freedom. Okay, now none of my definitions are going to be perfect, but let's just say financial freedom is that you have more money coming in from non-active sources of income, or things that you don't have to go to get paid. I'm very tentatively trying not to use the word passive because that's another question about passive income. But I don't want to say, what everyone else says, which is your passive income exceeds your expenses to live the life that you want to live. That's an easy way to define it. For me, it's like, do you have money coming in that doesn't require you to go to a job? Okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's passive. Okay. I'm going to define that hopefully later in the episode. But you have consistent funds coming in that doesn't require you to show up and clock in for work. So with that being said, if you have debt, you can be financially free with debt. Well, how? Well, part of the income that is coming to you will go to service the debt. I said on another episode that so many people, when it comes to debt, they only look at the principal amount, the total amount that they owe to somebody or some entity. And then the very next thing that they want to talk about is the interest rates. The dollar amount of debt scares the hell out of people. The bigger it is, the scarier it is. And the interest rate scares the hell out of people. The bigger it is, the scarier it is. The only thing I care about is servicing the debt payment. I don't care about the total amount. I do not care about the interest rate. The only thing I care about is debt service, which, what does that do for me? It puts me in the here and now. It puts me in what needs to happen to be able to take care of the amount of money that they're asking for. If you have $500,000 of debt, they're not asking for $500,000 today. They're asking for $2,000 in the next 30 days. Okay. Now, if you're on a debt schedule, they're going to ask that every month for the next 30 years or whatever it may be. Okay. But I don't care if the interest is 3% or 18%. If the payment is $2,000, then I only care about hopefully earning at or above $2,000, ideally, if I'm focused on financial freedom, through a way that doesn't require me to go and clock in for work. So if I'm overwhelmed by debt, it's because I'm fixated on debt. If you care about financial freedom, you don't have to fixate on debt, which means you don't have to be overwhelmed by it. What you should fixate on is, how do I get more money to flow towards me? Right? At the pickleball courts, I'm pretty transparent when I get around people that I feel comfortable with, and I just let everyone around me there know. I said, I got $6 million worth of debt. I sleep well at night. Because the only thing that I care about in regards to that debt is how much money that debt flows towards me. And that amount of money is greater than the amount of money it costs to service the debt. Now, because that debt is on an amortized payment, someday in the future, it will be paid off. So my cash flow will be even better when that day comes. But the amount of money that flows towards me because of that debt is greater than the debt service. Another thing we can, go back to personal finances is, I think it's naive of people to say that all debt's bad. Debt is debt. I disagree. Not all debt is the same. There is a big difference between the people that have $30,000 of credit card debt that has been accruing 22% interest every month for the last 3 years because those people use those credit cards to go buy excessive amounts of handbags, excessive amounts of things to put on their truck, excessive amounts of this or that, excessive amounts of alcohol on a Friday and Saturday night to impress their friends or, God forbid, people they don't know across the bar. That is not good debt. Going to a liberal arts school that's going to cost you $30,000 at least a year to become a high school gym teacher. I'm a former high school teacher. I didn't teach physical education. I taught finance and economics. I knew physical education teachers at that school who went to a private liberal arts college that cost at minimum $30,000 a year. That is $120,000 over 4 years to be a physical education teacher in a system where they started at $35,000 a year pre-tax. Not good debt. Now, on the flip side, you could say doctors, people that go to school to be a doctor, 10, 15 years, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. Not all student debt is created equal either. They're coming out making six figures. They only need to be concerned about servicing their debt. Debt that's backed by assets, which is what I prefer. Okay, I take on debt to acquire an asset. The asset's going to flow money into my life. That is helping me obtain financial freedom. That is not passive income. My assets that are backed by debt do require my attention, even though I have teams in place. That is for another question, another day. So hopefully some of my thoughts, these aren't all of my thoughts, but some of my thoughts there help the people that feel overwhelmed by debt. Start fixating on getting more money to flow into your life. Remember this. Every debt, every dollar that you pay to go to service a debt is a dollar you cannot get back. So I would rather take the additional dollars that I have up and above what that minimum payment is for that debt. I want to take every additional dollar I have and go put it to work for me so it can work forever. When I take a dollar and I put it into something that will pay me today and for the rest of my life, that will help service the debt, but it will not stop when that debt is paid off. It's going to pay me in perpetuity. But if I take a dollar today to pay off the debt, yeah, it lowered my debt obligation. Yeah, it's going to lower the accrued interest over time. Yeah, I'm going to become debt-free faster. You've foregone the right to not only earn money on that dollar today, that is called opportunity cost in the short term. You have foregone the opportunity to earn money on that time or earn dollars on that dollar for a longer, greater amount of time, ideally for the rest of your life. That is the larger opportunity cost. And the cost of losing out on that is greater than the cost to service your debt. I hope that helps. Question number 2, what are the most common mistakes men make when trying to balance their careers and family life? Now, you know, Jeff and I are not big fans of the word balance. We try and create a life of flow. When our family, fitness, finances, and freedom all are interconnected and they all are pushing us towards this higher power of our goals and the vision that we have for ourselves and our families and our money and whatever else we're working on, I can go from one thing to the other. But what I see most of all from high W-2 income earners, high achievers, and business owners is they don't take their family to work with them, but they bring their work home to their family. That is a recipe for disaster. Now, I don't necessarily need to say you need to split those apart and never bring your work home. I build everything I have on my phone, and my phone is near me at all times. So I do bring my work home with me. How often am I looking at it? I bet you if you follow me around with the camera, you'd see me looking at my phone when my kids are in the room. Fact. Okay. I'm not better than anyone else. But I've come to realize that there is a time and a place for me to keep my phone at home. There's a time and a place for me to keep my phone in the car. There's a time and a place for me to put my phone in another room. There's a time and a place for me to turn my phone off. And that's when my kids want my attention. That's when my wife wants my attention. Another big mistake is that men, we are the breadwinners, right? Historically, psychologically, it's what we did. We brought the food home, right? We bring the money home. Okay. I know times have changed, but that's still in our psyche. So if you say you're providing for your family and the only way you're providing for them is by going to work, your kids want a little bit more. And they don't need you all the time, every day, all day. But they do need you after work. They do want to see their father in the morning. Maybe not every day, right? You get up early, you got to go to the job site. I get it. But you haven't taken a vacation day in 2 years, bro? Come on. The work will always be there. The job may be there tomorrow, may not, but there will always be a job there tomorrow. You're saying you're sacrificing now so you can build financial freedom, but like, what's going to happen when you get financially free? Maybe you get there at 43 years old and your kids are 11 and 12. But you're just all of a sudden going to stop working and just fixate on your kids. Not going to happen, most likely. So this comes back to my thought around the 2-week vacation every year. Would you rather have 2 weeks of vacation every year or, a 3-day weekend once a month? Right? That extra day every month or every 2 weeks, depending on how much vacation you have built up at your job. Like, and if you have a business where you can choose and you're not choosing to take a Monday or Friday off, put your priorities at the top of the list. Those are some of the mistakes that I see. Okay. Number 3, how do I maintain motivation when I hit roadblocks in my fitness journey? Great question. The cliche quote is you don't live off motivation, you live off discipline, right? Discipline is doing the things that you know you should do when you don't want to do them. Okay, cool. That doesn't really change anything for me, right? It's just a cliche quote. If you've hit a roadblock, now this doesn't mean just like a plateau, right? That's just science. It's going to happen. Plateaus are going to happen. You hit a roadblock, right? Come to a dead stop because you aren't doing your habits. One of the first exercises men do in the Tactical Empire Inner Circle when they come in is they audit their 4 Fs. They audit their time and they audit their daily habits. They identify what habits are positively serving them and what habits are negatively serving them. And then the goal is for them to create a structure, a schedule, and a way to track habits to increase and make the attention and completion of doing the positive habits easier and doing the negative habits harder. Okay. And for me, guys, quite frankly, this is one of the hardest ones for me to connect with people on because fitness is such a part of my life. That doesn't mean I work out for 3 hours a day. I definitely do not. Some of my workouts last 15 minutes and they're in the garage and I don't break a sweat. It's on a Sunday morning after church. My kids barely didn't even recognize that I wasn't in the house, right? And maybe I'm fortunate because that's a part of my life. I just don't get it. I do not get it. I do not relate to, I cannot connect with the people who don't work out, who don't eat fairly well, who don't care about sleep. Guys, I have 2 events that I'm traveling to next month. And these events they're going to be fantastic events, but there's speakers at these events, which means most likely there's going to be chairs and everyone's going to be sitting. The biggest thing outside of being away from my family that I do not look forward to when I go to events is sitting down. Now, one of the events, I'm going to be one of the people running it. So maybe I have a little bit more flexibility, but like I go off on the side, I stand in the back of the room, I stand off on the side, I start stretching my hips. I do not like sitting down for more than 30 to 60 minutes. So for those of you that are sitting 8 hours, I can't relate. I can't relate. I don't have a stand-up desk. I don't have a treadmill at my desk. Like right now I'm sitting when I'm doing this podcast. I sat for 45 minutes earlier doing bills at my house because I let them stack up on the counter. And I'm recording 2 podcasts. And then when I get home, I'm going to walk my dogs. I'm not going to go back to sitting. I create the right habits. That's how you avoid roadblocks in your fitness. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we talked about on today's episode is how can I move past the feeling of overwhelm with debt? What mistakes men make when trying to balance their careers and family? And lastly, how do I maintain motivation when I hit roadblocks? Hopefully you guys got took something away from today's episode. As always, please follow Jeff and I on Instagram at @TheRealJeffSmith, at Shawn_Rider_. Send us DMs. We do have an Instagram account for the Tactical Empire now. We're posting our content there. Follow the Tactical Empire on Instagram. Get on Facebook. We do have a free group, the Tactical Empire Community. If you're someone that has been listening to our podcast and you have yet to make the investment into the inner circle, it's really the best $300 a month that you can make. We'd love to have you in there. We are a men's mastermind group focusing on making men high achievers, better men, better husbands, better fathers, and making a metric F ton of money along the way. Appreciate you guys. Tune in for another episode. Thank you.